The people of Anchorage, Alaska are jumping into their bathing suits and heading to the beach today. Do they even have beaches in Anchorage, Alaska? They're excited. Anchorage is used to temperatures hovering around the 60s in June, but yesterday the official high was 81 degrees, breaking the city's previous record set in 1926. It was just 1 month ago that Anchorage got its last snowfall. That means that in just 4 weeks, the city went from freezing to an unprecedented heat wave. But it's not just Anchorage feeling the heat. Some are citing temperatures as high as 98 degrees, which matches the all-time high for all of Alaska ever. Alaska is as hot as Miami. Even though Alaskans are enjoying the heat wave, there's something undeniably disconcerting about it. Climate scientists say that Alaska is one of the fastest warming states because it is so close to melting Arctic ice. As the ice melts, the state will have to deal with an increase in disease-spreading bugs, rising sea levels, and wildfires. On the other side of the country, New York is bracing itself for climate change-related disasters itself. Experts predict that sea levels around New York will rise 31 inches by 2050. After the devastation of Hurricane Sandy, Mayor Michael Bloomberg is planning for more weather-related disasters himself. Last week, he announced plans to spend $20 billion setting up levees, flood walls, and disaster relief funds. Even though people still deny climate change, the countrywide dangers of it have now become just impossible to ignore. We're joined today by Andrew Guzman, professor at UC Berkeley School of Law and author of the new book, Overheated, The Human Cost of Climate Change. Welcome into the War Room, Andrew. Listen, you're a professor at UC Berkeley. You have a degree in economics. Why write a book on climate change?
So there's a sense that people have that climate change is a scientific topic, which obviously it is, but it's also a social topic. How we respond to it is something that economists and law scholars look at all the time. And that's what you see with Mayor Bloomberg trying to decide what to do in New York, with President Obama talking about what he's going to do, with the Congress deciding what they're going to do. Those are political and social questions, not scientific ones. So the book's an attempt to speak to human beings, to tell them how they're going to be affected, not merely how the natural world will be affected.
And as you speak to human beings, I find with climate change, as opposed to other issues, I mean, you have a massacre at a school in Connecticut, the entire gun lobby is motivated. If there isn't some, there are people, after Sandy, people said, after Katrina, people said the same thing. This could be climate change. We think it's climate change. Some people say, no, it's a storm. Storms happen. What is the sort of the event around which people will coalesce to have people be really interested in this?
I think it probably will be something like Hurricane Sandy, though it's true that you can't identify any one event. The problem is that you can identify quite clearly that the number of events increased, average temperatures go up, but that doesn't have that saliency in it.
Yeah.
So I think it probably, you saw this after Sandy. You saw there seemed to be a greater sense that climate change was real. Mayor Bloomberg is doing it now. He wasn't doing it last year. New York's not actually any safer or more dangerous this year than it was last year. We just had the intervening event.
Which and that that's the answer to the question, really. You see the response. You see what Bloomberg is doing. You say in your book, climate change is going to damage the very foundation upon which we built our civilization. I don't think people understand how pervasive the problem is. Is climate change now, can we safely say that it's the biggest concern of our time?
Oh yeah. I mean, the nuclear catastrophe is the only contender that's even close. Yeah. And hopefully that's not an imminent threat.
In your book, you point out the disasters that will take place if the average temperature rises just 2 degrees by 2050. You talk about that. That's a conservative estimate, 2 degrees. That's what they're saying. Scientists are saying that's the minimum. Why are you working from the 2 degree, and what does that mean?
So I picked that on purpose. I picked a low number to show that even in a more or less best case scenario, absent aggressive human efforts, we're in big trouble. And so that was on purpose. The reality, my best guess is that it's higher temperature change, more sea rise, more suffering.
So you hear about that at 2 degrees. Let's say it's 4 degrees, which some scientists are saying. What happens at 4 degrees?
Everything gets worse, but it gets worse exponentially. So the difference between 1 and 2 degrees is bad, between 2 and 3 is worse than that, 3 and 4 is worse than that. So it gets very, very bad, very, very fast.
On record are about 97% of all scientists who say that climate change is real. I'm curious as to whether or not you've spoken to any of the 3%. And with all that's going on, there are still some critics out there who are deniers. How do we deal with them?
I think we not ignore literally. I think we don't let them get in the way. That is, there are people who use this out of political motivation, and that has to be called out for what it is. But there's no doubt about this, just as there's no doubt about other important scientific insights, some of which have received resistance. Evolution would be one. We know the Earth is round, the Flat Earth Society has faded, but these scientific truths are there,
right.
And deniers can't be allowed to hijack that conversation. We need to be talking about solutions, not already settled scientific
Yeah, I mean, the
questions.
flat Earth example is exactly right. I mean, I think you just have to sort of flatten these deniers and walk right over them to get to the truth. The World Bank today released a report, Andrew, that says rising temperatures will change agriculture patterns, shift watershed systems, and cause more catastrophic storms and floods. They propose spending $4.6 billion on adaptation efforts. Do you think that's enough?
So there's a real horrible choice here. I don't like adaptation strategies because they're treating symptoms, not the cause. On the other hand, you don't want to stand idly by while the poorest people in the world suffer the worst effects of this. I would much rather see the resources going to mitigation that is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Though I don't really want to criticize this World Bank proposal because they face, the World Bank itself can't make mitigation happen. That's up to essentially the United States, China, and Europe.
Right. In anything having to do with money, disasters, the poor are always hit hardest. I heard you just mention it. Why with climate change are the poor hit hardest?
They live in the wrong place. They live close to the equator where it's already hot. They have fewer resources to adapt. And they're more often agriculture-based, especially subsistence-based agriculture, all of which will be badly harmed. And when food prices go up, because climate change will reduce food supply, those of us who have the money will be the ones with the money to buy it.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, and this book, Overheated, is a clarion call. Hopefully it gets a lot of people overheated about this issue. Andrew Guzman, thanks so much. Buy this book, buy Overheated, read it, and react to it. Coming up here in the War Room, 10 years ago, Howard Dean ran for president. He didn't give progressives a victory, but what he did give them was something they needed even more, a backbone. And he'll join us next, right here in the War Room.